You're probably not lazy, but you're probably trying to build a meaningful life with the attention span of a poisoned Magikarp. Because let's be honest, most men already know what would improve their lives. Things like saving money, talking to people, and not watching 47 videos about discipline while ignoring the laundry pile that has become a legally recognized roommate. The problem is not that you don't know what to do. The problem is that modern life has built a bunch of traps that make the obvious things feel weirdly impossible. You sit down to work and suddenly your brain wants YouTube. You try to sleep and suddenly your phone whispers, "Just one more shot, bro. This one might contain the meaning of life." I think a lot of men are stuck because their reward system has been trained like a badly raised Pokemon. It only responds to instant rewards, avoids hard battles, and somehow thinks quick attack is a life philosophy. So in this video I'm breaking down the 7 dopamine traps keeping you stuck, and more importantly, how to escape them. And this is not going to be another delete every app and become a monk video, because that advice usually fails because it misunderstands the problem. When you're lying on the couch tired after work, your brain is cooked, your body's half dead, you're not looking for a heroic quest. You're looking for the easiest possible thing that makes the bad feeling go away for 5 seconds. And your phone is basically a legendary Pokemon at doing that. It's always there, it requires no effort, and it knows your weakness. So the real solution has to match how humans actually behave when they're tired, lonely, stressed, bored, insecure, and lying under a blanket like a Victorian child recovering from bad Wi-Fi. So let's talk about the traps. The first trap is what I call the low energy replacement trap. This is the situation where you just doom scroll for 2 hours and some guy on the internet says, "Instead of scrolling, go for a run, write a book, or learn guitar." And you're sitting there like, "Brother, I'm currently horizontal. My greatest achievement in the last hour was blinking manually." That's why things to do instead of doom scrolling usually doesn't work. Because what doom scrolling really is, it's basically the splash attack of modern entertainment. Except somehow it still drains your entire evening. So if you want to replace a low energy habit, the replacement has to be low energy too. At least at first. You don't go from rotting on TikTok to writing your business plan. You need bridge habits. Things that are better than scrolling, but still easy enough that your exhausted brain doesn't reject them like a badly treated Magikarp. For example, it could be putting on a long-form YouTube video instead of shorts. It could be playing a slower game intentionally instead of randomly consuming algorithm sludge. Because if your only options are scroll or become David Goggins by 9:47 PM, your brain is going to choose to scroll every time. It's not even a fair fight. That's like sending a level 5 Torchic against the Elite 4 and acting surprised when it gets turned into emotional nuggets. So the first escape is simple. Stop trying to replace low effort dopamine with high effort perfection. Replace it with slightly better low effort behavior, then climb from there. You don't need a perfect habit, you need a habit your tired brain will actually do. Then the second trap is fake rest. That is when you think you're resting because you're not working, but your brain is still getting beaten with a frying pan by 900 pieces of content. When you finish work and you say, "I'm just going to relax," and then you spend 2 hours scrolling, and after that, you somehow feel worse. It's because you didn't really rest. You just gave your exhaustion a screen and called it recovery. Mentally, your brain has been dragged through more environments than a Pokemon speedrunner with caffeine poisoning. 1 second you're laughing, then you're comparing yourself, then you get angry, you get inspired, then you get insecure from all the different content you've been watching. That's not rest. Real rest is much slower. And that's why we avoid it, because it's really boring. A way you can test this is just asking yourself after your quote-unquote rest, do I actually feel more recovered or do I feel even more fried? If your rest leaves you more tired, more anxious, more insecure, then that was not rest. The third trap is cheap dopamine, and this one is huge because dopamine is way more than just pleasure. It's also tied to your motivation, your effort, and the feeling that something is worth moving towards. In simple terms, dopamine is part of what makes you chase things. And that can be good. You change progress, mastery, and a life that actually feels like yours. That's a healthy pursuit. That's your inner Pokemon trainer waking up and saying, "Alright, time to stop standing around in Littleroot and actually go fight something." But modern life gives you cheap dopamine without real progress. Cheap dopamine trains your brain to expect reward without effort. And then real life starts feeling broken because your baseline dopamine is so much lower. Learning a new skill suddenly feels too frustrating, and dating feels too vulnerable. Saving money feels too invisible because it takes too long before you actually get that reward. And your brain goes, "Why would I do this slow and hard thing when I can actually get a reward right now?" And that is the trap. Cheap dopamine is like getting XP in a fake game while your real character stays level 3. Your screen life levels up while your real life stands there with a wooden sword and no potions. And then you wonder why you feel behind. This is also why people can know exactly what they need to do and still not do it. But their brain has been trained to prefer instant reward over meaningful progress. It's not that they don't care, it's that their reward system has been hijacked by digital Team Rocket. The escape is to make sure your dopamine comes from things that give something back. And the question here to ask you is, does this make my life better after it's over? And that one question will expose a lot of your habits brutally. Now the fourth trap is free time drift. And this might be the most important one on the list because most people don't ruin their lives during work hours. It happens in the hours after work. The 9 to 5 pays the bills, but the 6 to 10 either builds your future or quietly erases it. After work is where you decide, do I build or do I enter the couch dimension and let the algorithm chew through another evening like a Snorlax with Wi-Fi? Your free time is where your identity gets built, by the repeated decisions when nobody's watching. And the hard part about this is it feels like I deserve this, it's been a long workday. And sure, maybe you do deserve rest, but you also deserve a future. You deserve self-respect. You deserve to make progress and not to wake up at 30 and realize your entire life got farmed by autoplay. So the escape is not to turn every evening into a productivity prison. The escape is just to create a default structure, something that you can easily do after work, and then build on top of that from there. Because if your evening has no structure, your phone will provide one for you. And your phone's default structure these days is scroll until your eyes feel like raisins. So ask yourself, what is my free time training me to become? The 5th trap is information overload. This one is quite sneaky because it does feel productive. When you're watching videos and getting advice, you're learning, researching. And in small doses, learning is great, but at some point too much information stops giving you clarity and starts destroying your direction. Because every single creator, including myself, has a different worldview. One says you should go monk mode, one says you should enjoy your youth, one says dating is everything, and one says detach from women entirely. And after hearing all this, you no longer know what you actually think. You just become a haunted playlist of other people's opinions. And this is especially dangerous for young men, because your 20s are already confusing. You're trying to figure out the money thing, the dating thing, career, your own identity, health, friendships, purpose. So when the algorithm gives you unlimited advice, it does not always help. It actually just distracts you more. And it makes you feel more lost sometimes. The thing that often keeps you watching is a combination of fear, urgency, and comparison. And the feeling that you're one missing secret away from fixing your entire life, so you keep searching for that fix, like some kind of drug addict. In Pokemon terms, this is like constantly reading guides, watching tier lists, studying movesets, comparing starters, and never leaving the first town. At some point, Professor Oak is standing there like, please, just touch grass. Literally, there are Pokemon in it. And the escape here is to choose your inputs deliberately. Pick just a few voices you trust, and then act upon it. And if someone's content makes you feel anxious, inferior, or like your entire personality needs a software update, be careful. Not all advice deserves access to your mind. So if you don't choose your values, the algorithm will install them for you. So ask yourself, who is actually shaping my worldview? And do I actually want to become more like them? Trap number 6 is the no boredom trap. Boredom is where your thoughts finally load in, and modern life has almost completely removed it. You're waiting in line? Let me grab my phone. You're on the toilet? Let's bring our phone. You're walking? Yeah, let me just check stuff on my phone while I walk. The phone appears in your hand like a cursed item. At this point, it's basically an HM move you can't delete. And because we never allow boredom, we never allow our minds to wander. That matters, because mind wandering is where ideas come from. It's where you process your emotions, it's where you connect the dots, it's where your brain goes, hey, remember that thing you actually care about? But if every quiet moment gets interrupted by your phone, your real thoughts never get past the loading screen. No wonder you feel scattered. You're never alone with your own mind long enough to hear what it's trying to tell you. But most people run away before anything happens. The solution here is to create small pockets of boredom. Just small moments, like a walk without audio. Letting yourself feel mildly uncomfortable without immediately sedating yourself with content. Because if you cannot survive boredom, you'll struggle to build anything meaningful. And all meaningful things require boring parts. Boredom is not the enemy, it's often the price of going deeper with anything you want out of life. The final trap, number 7, is the broken motivation trap. This is when you think you lack discipline, but really your reward system has been trained to hate effort. You look at goals and think, I want that, but when it comes time to act, your brain says, that seems too slow or too difficult. And suddenly you're scrolling, or watching videos about the thing, or planning, or researching, and your brain gets a huge reward from that instead of actually doing the thing. Suddenly the hard work seems like a bad deal. But if you start reducing the cheap stimulation, and all the excess planning and researching without taking action, progress will start to feel much more real and rewarding again. So for 7 days, do yourself the favor of reducing the obvious cheap dopamine. So scroll less, watch less adult content, eat less junk food, watch less random YouTube, game less, and check your phone less for emotional support like it's your starter Pokemon. And then add the real stuff back in, like reading, deep work, social connection, skill practice, and so on and so forth. These boring, useful things, which at first might feel flat, but eventually, you'll definitely feel the difference. Think about it like this, if your brain is used to fireworks, a candle is gonna look boring. So let's put this together. If you feel stuck, don't start by asking, what is wrong with me? Start by asking, what traps am I living inside? Because if your environment is full of cheap dopamine, fake rest, and information overload, of course you're gonna feel lazy and unmotivated. So here's the simple escape plan, taking into account all the different traps we talked about here. Number 1, replace the low energy habits with slightly better low energy habits. Give it a bridge. Number 2 is separate fake rest from real rest. If it leaves you fried, it was not rest. Number 3, reduce cheap dopamine. Number 4, protect your free time. They are your future being quietly built or quietly deleted. Number 5, limit your inputs. If every creator gets to install a worldview in your head, your identity becomes a group project run by strangers. That's a terrible idea. And number 6, let yourself be bored. Your real thoughts need room to respawn, so stop running from every wild encounter inside your own mind. Number 7, retrain motivation through progress. This is the small wins, the daily action. Do these and one day you realize, wait, I'm actually different now. And that's the part I want you to remember. You need to stop blaming your character and start changing the game environment. Because in Pokemon, if your team keeps losing, you don't sit there calling your starter worthless for 3 hours. Well, maybe you do if you're 11 and dramatic, but eventually you heal. Life is similar. If you keep losing to the same habits, maybe the answer is not more shame. Maybe the answer is better structure. You don't need to become a different person overnight. You need to stop feeding the version of you that keeps you stuck and start feeding the version of you that actually wants to live and thrive. If this hit home, leave a comment below with a trap you've fallen into. And if you want the next step, watch this video next about wasting your 20s, because that one breaks down what happens when these small loops quietly shape your entire trajectory. And subscribe if you're trying to build a life your future self won't resent.